What you just heard was Aaron Grubb's rendition of Lon Lon Branch from Ocarina of Time, and today we're joined by the composer himself. Welcome to a special Zelda Month episode of the Switch Clicks podcast. I'm your host Dakota, and today I'm joined by our resident hyper Zelda geek Nathan. Tonight we're joined by Aaron Grubb, a musician that is known for remastering or recomposing iconic Zelda themes, one of which you just heard. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Hi, how's it going?
So, for those that don't know what do you do?
Well, most of what I do, as far as Zelda is concerned, I take existing Zelda music and make it my own, I guess. The technical term is covering it. I mean, if it's an old one, like from the original Legend of Zelda, like the Game Over theme that I've already released, it just started off as one note at a time on the original Legend of Zelda, but I made it into a full-fledged song with strings and choir and cello and stuff. So that's kind of what I do. I transform, I think that's a better word for it. I transform Legend of Zelda music into something new.
Yeah, which is something that I don't think I would have ever heard in my lifetime unless they were to remake those original games. And it gives almost a whole different perspective to those older games.
Yeah, I agree.
Like revisiting memories, but you suddenly see them in a completely different way.
Yeah, I've gotten messages from people or just even the playlist titles people put my music into. It's very clear that my versions feel nostalgic to them. Like I add some nostalgia somehow. It doesn't even make sense, but that seems like what people are getting out of it.
Yeah, it's almost that sensation of when you were little, probably like under 10 or something, and you played these older games, this is how it sounded like in your head. But now you come to, if you revisit the games, they don't sound like that at all. But you kind of you legitimize that forgotten memory, you could say.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So what do you do outside of making music? I think there's photographer in that resume.
Yeah. I mean, I do make other music, but that's more recent. For the last 10 years or so, I've done photography. If you're familiar with my music at all, or with me on social media, my profile picture is basically a selfie, and some of my other album covers, like the first one I released, Gerudo Valley, that's my son in Legend of Zelda outfit, and then the Emberwood theme that I wrote, that's my daughter on the front. But if you're curious, you can always go to Instagram and look me up. It's at Grubb Aaron instead of Aaron Grubb.
Yeah, we'll throw that in the description.
And for our first major question, I'd ask, what made you want to become a musician?
Oh, gosh. So when I was like 5, I think, I started, I don't know, hearing piano on the radio or something. I don't even remember where I was hearing it, but I started like just begging my parents to get a piano. And we weren't rich or anything, so it took a while, but my parents found like a cheap piano to bring home. It turned out to be a good piano that somebody was just getting rid of for cheap, but I really enjoyed that piano. I don't know, I must have just had a love of music earlier than I can remember having a love for music. Memories degrade over time, but and progressively, I just got more and more interested in it. Like in middle school, I heard a saxophone in a song. I wanted to play the saxophone. Then the saxophone stopped being so popular, and then I didn't want to play it anymore. But it just like in different parts of my life, I was inspired by a different instrument, and I always came back to the piano. But in high school, electric guitar was obviously a more popular instrument for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A cooler instrument.
What's the list of instruments that you know how to play?
Okay, so
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, the thing is, do I play it well, or do I just, obviously the piano, I've been playing that since I was 6, like I said. So that's like the instrument I would always come back to, I think. But the saxophone. I don't know how to play the saxophone anymore, but I think I could probably pick it up. I play the mandolin a little bit. Like I'm not like super good, but like I can do some picking and some good drumming on that too. Acoustic and electric guitar, and if you play those instruments, you can basically play the bass, but it doesn't mean you play it really well. I can play the bass like as long as I'm not expected to do anything terribly complex. I know all the chords and where my fingers go, so that's easy enough. I do not play any like bowed instruments like the violin and no like wind instruments like flutes. I've always been terrible at wind instruments.
Brass?
My brother had a trumpet under his bed the one summer, and I pulled it out and I started teaching myself, but I wasn't very good at it. I had other things to do, so I walked away and blew some stuff up in the backyard instead.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I think I was like 12 or something and had some extra fireworks to.
I still envy you. I can only play like the saxophone, and as far as anything else goes, I'm very, very in the basics of it. Barely gone past the basics.
All right, well, keep at it, man.
The
The piano is a great place to start for any musician, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's where I personally started, but just kind of fell out of it.
Yeah, it's good for understanding music theory because of its linear nature.
For the instruments in your music, is that all, I guess, samples is the right word? What would you call that?
I would call them sample libraries. So they've been designed so that you can. I mean, I could program if I wanted to, but that would just take ages and it wouldn't have any feeling in it. But I mean, if you think about it, okay, so the older keyboards that have the sounds in them.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing, except those sounds are in your computer instead. So, and usually we call those sample libraries, or some of them you might call them VSTs, but you generally, I mean, it's just so much easier just to play it on the keyboard. But you have to, if you listen to some of my like more orchestrated ones, that takes a lot of thought and design, kind of, in a way. Like it's like I'm doing composition, like I'm being a composer, music producer more than I am being a musician, except when I'm playing like the piano or.
Yeah, it's kind of like composing like an entire symphony orchestra or something, having to make it sound nice.
Did you guys get a chance to listen to my new version of Gerudo Valley, or what is it, Full Steam Ahead on SoundCloud?
I did listen to the Full Steam Ahead, and I loved it.
Yes, that one was insane. I didn't get to Gerudo Valley though, but oh my gosh.
Well, thanks for listening to that. That took a lot of parts. Like, there's even clarinets, flutes, and like oboes and things in the background there, as well as the descant horn and trumpet and like 5-string part. Well, actually, probably more than 5-string parts. I don't know. But there's a lot going on there, and so that takes more of a composer mindset. And so, if someone was to criticize, like, oh, you're using sample libraries, I'd be like, well, I mean, I'm basically doing the same thing as somebody writing it down by hand or in like Sibelius or.
Pretty much. There's just no other viable way, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have thousands of dollars to throw at an orchestra.
Yeah.
And I would have to pay like an orchestrator or an arranger or whatever to
exactly
print out the different parts for like 200 different people or something.
Much cheaper to just throw it on your computer and just use a bunch of different sound libraries.
Yeah.
Even like I've seen like a couple people use like even the I don't want to say cheap, but like stuff like Finale.
Oh yeah.
Even the most basic programs, because they're just like, especially for high school students or college students, there's just no way they can actually do a whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Basically zero budget.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you can go pretty cheap. Like, if you have a friend that bought an audio interface or some speakers or a keyboard or something, sometimes they get a free version of Ableton, Bitwig, or something like that. I mean, it's basically like, as far as Ableton goes, it's basically a fully functional DAW, to use a technical term. It's just the recording software. You can only do like 8 channels, but you can do a lot with 8 channels, and then you go out and go to like Spitfire Labs or whatever, and those are all free. And if you go over to, there's a whole bunch of different companies that give out free software. So you could basically score like a short film or something with free software. There's enough good software out there. You'd just be really limited. You'd have to work around your limitations, but it could be doable.
I guess that kind of brings us to like the question: how does it look like when you're like creating a new project? What is it like? What are like the first moments for that?
That's a hard question. I think it's different each time, but in general, I mean, often I kind of have an idea of what I want. I mean, like when I first started, I would just have to like noodle around like on the piano or something to decide what I wanted to do. But now I sometimes I can actually visualize what I want, but that doesn't mean that's where I end up at all. Like I'll start there and then I'll just follow it wherever it goes. So like one that people can actually look up that I've released, Departure. I didn't know what I was going to do with that. I thought maybe it would just end up being a piano thing. And then lately I've been going a little hog wild on, all of a sudden, like Gerudo Valley. I didn't know when I first started doing the new version of Gerudo Valley, I was thinking solo piano or something and like a relaxing version. But it kind of built up into this incredibly epic part at the end there. So make sure you go back and listen to that. And if somebody's listening to this in January, it should be out by then, like the whole album.
We will look forward to seeing that. As a matter of fact, I'm actually listening to one of your Gerudo Valleys, and that intro is really, really starting to build up there.
We can kind of strafe towards your inspirations and kind of how you grew up and whatnot. First question would be, what musicians influenced you either growing up or even now?
I think like in high school, like I loved Radiohead's OK Computers, but that album, like you should go listen to it. It's like I would listen to it from beginning to end because I feel like it one thing. It's not like one song. It's like a whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. And I mean, I listened to a lot of oldies too, but I feel like that was more like, I don't know, I feel like the Beatles did influence the way I played piano. I'm having trouble thinking of anything else besides classical music because in piano lessons, I did play a lot of classical pieces. I was influenced by like Chopin, like what is that? Is it Prelude in E minor or something like that? Some melancholy stuff like that. Like, is it Eric Satie that did? Somebody out there's going to know what I'm talking about. It's a real calm song, and if you listen to that and then you listen to like my version of Saria's song, you'll totally hear it.
In that conversation, you said your piano lessons. What was your first music teacher like? What lessons did you learn from them that you use today?
Oh yeah. Since I started when I was 6, I don't remember all of it, but she was super nice. She gave me stickers on every little thing that I did right. So I guess making it fun was the thing I'd take away from. Instead of, like some people, they set their kids up with a classical music teacher and they are like, that's incorrect, do it right, and they're, really maybe harsh, I guess, or
Like high standards type of.
more of like a taskmaster,
Oh, yeah.
But no, I had the very opposite experience. Like, I probably didn't play Bone Sweet Bone perfectly. I'm sure she let it slip, a little bit.
I'm almost in the same boat. I've had, I think, a handful of piano teachers. With my first one, I lasted like 3 years with her, and she was Serbian, or she was Serbian European, and she was just hardcore. Almost to the point where like she would slap your hand with a ruler if you got it wrong.
Oh,
But
wow.
I'm sure if that was legal, she would have done it.
Yeah.
But after those 3 years, I got to the point with her, and I learned it, and then I went off to a different teacher, and she was a lot easier on me. Mind you, the lessons were less interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I eventually stopped and never kept up with it, unfortunately. Have you ever taught somebody an instrument?
I started teaching my friend's son piano. He wanted to learn photography and piano. So
Separate skills.
yeah, very, very different skills. So we tried to focus on piano first, or eventually on different days. But it was just really hard to figure out like a schedule for that because it was just extremely inconvenient timing for me.
Mhm.
So, and I knew I was gonna be really busy. The music, that was around the time I started the Legend of Zelda music. So I knew that if I wanted to focus any time at all on the music, that I would need to say no to that.
And I assume as a teacher, you would need to kind of, because it's only one-on-one, and that's like almost your first time teaching somebody, you would probably have to think about how you wanted to teach the person, and sometimes how you want to teach them doesn't work for them.
Exactly. I am not a teacher. So teaching somebody who needs a good teacher was just the first difficulty. And then trying to design a curriculum when I don't know how to design a curriculum and I don't know the best way or any techniques or strategies to teach anyone, it was quite a challenge.
Just get that ruler out every time they do something wrong.
So bouncing back, we sort of forgot to ask this earlier on, but I guess which instrument is like your least favorite to play?
I mean, maybe I would say the bass, not just because I'm not super good at it, but like I feel like I have no imagination for how to play the bass. Like I can't explain it. Like I can like do all these things with orchestral instruments, and sometimes I come to a standstill. I have no idea what to do. But like on the bass, when I've tried to like come up with something interesting, I draw a blank more than anything. So I just feel kind of awkward, I guess.
I think I know what you mean. Because like most of the times they're literally just playing like 4 different notes throughout the entire piece. Like it could go to that point where they're just playing 4 different notes the entire piece, and
Yeah.
it's really just repetition at that point. There's no, you have to get really really creative to just give bass a meaning in this. Well, even though their job is really just to keep the others in, just to keep the music in line, alongside
Right.
percussion.
I have to assume that this isn't your full-time job, right?
Well, that's a
Or is it complicated?
that's a complicated question, but I can answer that.
Okay.
Well, I was developing my photography business, and it was on the upward trend towards having a good income from that. But
Mm-hmm.
and then unexpectedly, we got pregnant, and I was going to have a third child, which people with kids out there are like, holy cow, how do you get anything done? So my photography kind of was on the back burner. I was still scheduling photography jobs, but obviously I can't do as many as I was doing. But then a lockdown happened. I had like no jobs for like 8 months or something. I can't remember.
Sure.
Um,
Seems to be a lot of people's story.
yeah, I had to sell some of my gear because the government gave me absolutely $0, like they gave a bunch of other people. Like I know I met this guy who was like, oh yeah, with the extra money that they gave me, I like built this giant shed here. See, and I got no money at all, and I actually needed it. But okay, so I kind of like some of the clients I had before didn't call me back. They didn't bring me back in after lockdown ended. But at that time, I also came to a realization that like all this people pleasing is really stressful, like just constant stress, like before, during, and after jobs sometimes. Lucky for me, I decided to start doing music right before lockdown happened. So I got a bunch of that started during lockdown, the bulk of album 1, in fact. So that has grown over time, and it's, I don't want to like throw out like solid numbers or anything, but like
For sure.
I just calculated yesterday that I'm actually making more than a part-time job. I was working a part-time job, but so I can supplement with photography if I wanted to, but I'm actually focusing full-time on music now that my youngest child is in kindergarten. I can actually put about 7 hours a day towards it and try to get all this out. So I guess all that to say, I am pretty much doing it full time now. It started this fall that I started doing that, and I think that putting out the album 3 and the other album that I'm going to put out, the non-Zelda video game cover album, kind of in the same style that I'm doing the Legend of Zelda music in. I think with putting that out, I think I'll be closer to full-time pay. And so the end goal is obviously making a living from music, but I'm also doing other projects to try to diversify like where the money's coming.
Yeah, I only ask because assuming that musicians or wannabe musicians are listening to this podcast episode, it's always curious to see anyone. It's always intriguing to see if anybody is actually making money off of it, because that's usually the end goal.
Yeah, just speaking to those people, it is possible to do. It just you kind of gotta do it right. Like I see a lot of people in every genre. They put out music and then they wait, and they might make a social media post, and they might ask their friends to listen to it. And that's what, and that's what I did, a long while ago. But in the long run, that doesn't do anything for you. You got to find those long-term listeners. And I mean, there's something to be said for growing your social media, presence and putting your personality out there, which I'm really not that good at that. But the big thing for me was, since I'm doing covers, especially in that sub genre or sub niche, of not just video game covers, but Legend of Zelda video game covers.
Yeah.
You can just look up like the playlists on Spotify and then message those people and ask them to put me on your playlist, and then some of them say no and some of them say yes, and either way you're getting some traction. But if you are in a genre, like even if it's just original piano music or folk music or whatever it is, and you're having a hard time gaining traction, sometimes just doing a cover or two can help. But there's a catch. A lot of people do a cover of a song exactly like the original. And if you're a local band doing that at a bar, that's great, actually. But if you want it to get listened to on Spotify, you got to make it unique. And I think that's one of the reasons I've gained so much traction and so many followers, is because, like, if you look at a song like Saria's song or Song of Storms, listen to the original, then listen to mine, it's like so different. Like people have never heard it that way before. And if you can if you can do that, then you'll get some traction.
Reminded me of how we started our podcast. It was almost the same thing, and we almost deal like with the same thing. It's all audio. We deal with Spotify, YouTube, social media, whatever.
And then we just waited.
And then when we first started, we put it out and just wait. And it didn't really go anywhere for about the first year or so. And then we decided to collaborate with other, like last year we did Zelda Month. And then just before last year's Zelda Month, we were at the Linktober Zelda Creator Con, and that actually helped us find other creators and kind of interact with them. And now we're doing Zelda Month again, and we're collaborating with even more people and doing even more collaborations. It is. We have kind of learned that it's a kind of about give some, get some, almost.
Like keeping your passion going in a sense.
If you can help somebody push their passion while also helping us push our passion, then it's a win-win.
A collaboration is another one of those things that have helped people gain traction, like you said. But like in music, some people have really become successful by collaborating. Like as far as music goes, aim for don't just like drop people messages saying like, "Hey, collab, bro." I mean, people do that, and it's like ridiculous, and nobody ever says yes. Like, look for somebody with a similar size of following, and try to collaborate with them, maybe
with a genuine interest towards collaborating and actually helping each other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like with Eivlya, who collaborated with me on Lon Ranch. I basically played the role as like pianist and producer and whatever, and she did the vocals. And our followings I don't think they're really similar sizes. In that case, I was just going for talent, and not only that, but she is fantastic, like as a person and as a creator and everything like that. So all those things together, like if I would have found a singer who is kind of a jerk and but talented, like I would have just moved on. So there's also something to be said about
that
being
personality
a nice
side. As a general standpoint from what we discussed about collaborations, I guess, how did like the internet as a whole kind of like affected your music business?
Oh man, at this point, I couldn't have done it without the internet. Like when I was younger, I was thinking, oh gosh, I'm gonna be like a songwriter, and I'm gonna play live and make a record and like send it places or something like people used to. Unfortunately, I was suffering the Dunning-Kruger effect at that point. I wasn't actually very good at it. But if I would have put it out on Spotify at that point, like the music I was making then, I still wouldn't have gotten anybody to listen to it. Like if that was now, because the music just wasn't very good. But but with the music I have now, I would have to be selling CDs. Like, I don't know what I would do. I would probably have to travel around the Pacific Northwest and dropping into all of the music stores, just cold calling, asking, will you sell my CD? And trusting that they'll give me the money for selling it.
But there's also that cost of having to get those physical mediums out as well.
Yeah, it can be pretty expensive, especially like if it's original music, it's pretty cheap, really. But what people don't think about with covers is that not only do you have to pay for licensing, like for digital stuff, but like when you add together the cost of CDs and the cost of licensing music for the CDs, it's an enormous cost. I think for what the amount of CDs I was going to do, I calculated it was going to be around $300 or $400.
Yeah,
and I can't remember how many CDs that was, but
that's also not taking like logistics and stuff into consideration.
Oh yeah, like postage and.
So because you make covers of Zelda music most of the time, and now you're kind of trying to get into original stuff. Do you ever worry that you have to be stuck with Zelda, or you become the Zelda cover guy? As a YouTube channel, that's a delicate line. If something gets super popular, we don't want to keep repeating it and then just get stuck with it.
Well, I mean, I have thought of that because my fourth album that's going to come after The Legend of Zelda Collection Volume 3 or whatever. It's going to be like all games that are not Zelda. So I'll see how that goes. But yes, I mean, I have had that thought, but I feel like it's a pretty easy lateral move to start doing other games and still be a part of the Zelda community that I'm a part of.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't think it's going to get listened to quite as much. It might be a little more difficult to break into the other. I mean, because like if I'm only going to do 2 songs or 1 or 2 songs per game, then I'm not joining that community. I'm just making music at that point. But as far as original music goes, I don't know that would be a hindrance at all. But I don't know how I would get my original music heard more than it's getting listened to, unless there's some playlists that are specific to the type of music I'm making.
Yeah, it's always a delicate balance, and now you just got to test it to see what happens.
Yeah, that's coming up here.
So in this final chunk, these are 2 questions we always ask every guest. The first one would be, what got you into the Zelda series specifically?
Oh, well, I'm old.
Okay.
That's good reason enough.
I'm not 25 anymore. So when I was like 5 or 6, like I had my first introduction to it was at a friend's house who had the original NES. That's why I said I'm old. And I was like pretty excited about the Legend of Zelda game. I think they ended up playing since we couldn't, like, more than one person couldn't play. I think they switched to Super Mario, and which I also loved. But that was my first experience, just being like, "Ooh, what is this? This is amazing!" And obviously the music, but and just seeing that around at other people's houses, is what got me interested. But my parents never let us have a console, so that kind of fell by the wayside a little bit after experiencing it at other people's houses. But I was always interested in it, and then later on, I think maybe my friend had a game on the Game Boy on the school bus or something. But I think the next big experience with Zelda was my best friend came to live with me when I lived in Montana to be my roommate, and he had multiple gaming systems, including the Xbox, and we played Halo a lot. I love Halo. And then he had a GameCube with Wind Waker on it, and I just watched him play that for so many hours that like the music from that game will just pop in my head any day, anytime, just randomly. Just it's such good music.
Like you hear the title screen in your head, and
oh man, yeah, looping day and night. Not literally. I mean, it was like back then, like just all the time. Just can't get out of my head. But I didn't mind because it was so good. But my wife also like plays all the games, and so like I watched her play just about every game. Not the handhelds, but like the console ones. So since we were spending so much time together, like I started to actually get to play them at that point, after just being enthralled with the series before that. And I can't remember what my first games that I played were, but I played Skyward Sword and some Wind Waker. and Breath of the Wild, and A Link Between Worlds. I actually played that one. She ended up getting a 3DS. That has some really good music too, but I can't license any of that music. But yeah, I wish I could do some of the songs from that. I played some other games too, but those are the main ones off the top of my head. But I mean, come on, every Zelda game has good music, but
yeah, in their own respective right.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of leads us to asking the curious question here: which one of the games is your favorite?
Okay, I'm gonna lose about half my fans here. Okay, if I'm gonna exclude Breath of the Wild, I think while I did enjoy the other ones, I really did get into A Link Between Worlds a lot. Oh, A Link's Awakening is one I forgot that I said I played, to say that I played. But I really did like A Link Between Worlds. Maybe it was the music that I liked so much about it, but it was a fun game. But like I like Breath of the Wild for like a completely different reason that I like the other ones. I just felt like I just felt like I was there, and for me that's like important with video games. So a lot of the other like the 3D Zeldas that I played, I did start a game of Ocarina of Time at some point, but I think I was just busy and I didn't keep playing it. But one thing that kept me from being more immersed in some of those older games is like how the buttons like are sometimes multifunctional and sometimes they don't do what you don't want them to do.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
I can easily relate.
So I like before my friend moved in with me in Montana. Most of the games I played were on PC, and like you can map everything to every button, And so like and then once you get used to it, you're like you're not even thinking about it anymore. So it's kind of second nature, and then
so much freedom.
Yeah, but then that lets you get immersed in it a little bit more. So like if I'm gonna like press the trigger button, like when I see an enemy and then like I jump instead, I that would take me out of the game. I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, wow, stop it. Or like I throw a crowbar instead or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or I just suddenly drop all of my items when I meant to shoot somebody, I don't I don't know. Like, yeah, go ahead.
I know what you mean. It's kind of like, especially when you try to put yourself into playing the older games, retrospectively, they just kind of feel like very restrictive. Like you're just kind of stuck there, and you're trying to press one button to do something, and then suddenly you waste all of your items. And
oops, I jumped off of something 100 feet in the air.
Yep.
Okay. Now, to anybody listening, I do plan on going all the way to the beginning and playing the original. I don't know. Maybe I'll try Adventure of Link, but I might skip that one also. But I will play the first game, and I will absolutely finish Ocarina of Time because that's a must.
Yes,
and if I play that, I might want to do Majora's Mask as well. Although, sorry, I'm not in love with like the way they did a lot of the music in Majora's Mask. Like I love Song of Healing, I love a lot of songs from it, but like I don't know. I feel like it's some of the like I don't know sound fonts or whatever you want to call those,
like compression as well.
Probably, yeah. Like there's a certain instrument that rubs me the wrong way from Majora's Mask that they used a lot. Anyway, so sorry to Majora's Mask fans. I was just watching my wife play Majora's Mask not long ago, and I don't know. There's a certain feel to some of the music in that game. Like some of the favorite songs that I've done are from Majora's Mask as well. I labeled it Oath to Order, but I think it's actually like Calling the Four Giants. But like without having the album to cross-reference, it's hard to get the track names right when you're licensing it and all that. But that one, I loved doing that song and Song of Healing. Like Ocarina of Time was just filled with iconic, catchy music. But then again, Majora's Mask had a billion more tracks on that game. So, in the defense of Majora's Mask, percentages.
I mean, they also kind of had more, how do I describe, like, emotion towards them, whereas Ocarina of Time kind of felt more of an adventurous thing. Majora's Mask had that depressing type of feel, or
Yeah, that
sometimes
too.
those somber, atmospheric, kind of like a more varied, mixed everything. And you kind of felt like you were, like, when you're listening to the music, you could actually like imagine the scenes that were going on. Whereas Ocarina of Time is just kind of like, oh, I know that theme. Like, I love that theme. It's really catchy, but
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. I've talked to a lot of people, like Celeste Roberts, who works with Boss Rush and another Zelda podcast, etc. She said that like my version of Song of Healing like made her cry because it like such like a meaningful connection to the game when that song plays. So I totally get what you mean there, because while Ocarina of Time is so iconic and catchy, a lot of people have an emotional, like a deeper emotional connection to Majora's Mask. So a point to Majora's Mask for that one.
yeah.
5 points for Gryffindor.
Well, that does lead me to ask you though. You did imply earlier that you kind of wanted to exclude Breath of the Wild from the list. How does Breath of the Wild music sound to you?
I'm not one of those people who are like, it doesn't even have a soundtrack. Sorry to anyone who actually said those words verbatim. And in that, whatever that was. I think it's fantastic, honestly. Like, it's not like a soundtrack that I would cover. I feel like it's more like, I feel like the composer did a phenomenal job in making it a part of your life in Breath of the Wild. Like you're riding a horse, so this that sound starts playing, and it's just
It
like
just
you almost don't even notice it's playing, because it's like when you wake up, it's that that whatever.
Yeah, the Hyrule Field morning sound.
Yeah. So most of the music from that, I feel like, is just like an extension or accentuation of what's going on. Like, I mean, if you go to Hateno Village or Kakariko or Lorelin or Hyrule Castle or whatever,
Yeah,
you get the theme, I mean, and that's some great music too. But I feel like it's a phenomenal soundtrack. It's just not like Ocarina of Time, where you're just humming it all day. You're not like prancing around your backyard doing it.
Yeah, it's just not something that you can just imagine in your head, unless like it's only just like very specific themes in that game. Whereas Ocarina of Time, you can basically imagine everything else.
Although it would be fun to have the Guardian theme queued up on your phone and just play at random places in public and see who reacts.
Oh man,
and that might just prove my point about like how good it really is.
Yeah, I've heard some people set that as their alarm to
Oh no,
to wake up.
no. I would probably make like the morning sound or like Hatino Village theme or something.
Yeah, something that kind of emphasizes that you're waking up or you're at
Oh
home.
no, the Stables theme.
Oh yes,
That would be a great wake up song.
yes.
Which is on my second album, self promotion here. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw. I actually, I took a look at it the other day. I didn't actually get to listen to it though.
Yeah, it's more of a fall asleep happy song, but yeah.
Works both ways, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I might just try that. Wake up to my own music.
As a final question, what piece of the Triforce do you think you inherited or contained? Power, courage, or wisdom?
Oh, now here's where you get to know me. It seems like everything in my life is like, oh, are you this or that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle somewhere, you know? Or like, are you an engineer? No, I'm not an engineer. No, I mean, if I was an engineer, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm an engineer. But like, as far as like, what would I say? Like, I'm not one of those people that's super like extreme one way or the other, or like I'm really good at one thing. I'm I'm not really good at one thing. I'm kind of good at a lot of things, or I'm kind of interested in a lot of things. I'm kind of more contemplative. Like when it comes to politics, I'm like, oh, what about this? What about that? Like, oh, I see your point of view. And I mean, that's changed a little bit lately, but I mean,
observational kind of stance.
Sorry, say that again.
Kind of like being like the observational guy and taking a look at every side, of every piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and if anybody out there is into the Enneagram personality test, I'm a Type 9, which should tell you a lot, because Type 9s are usually more like can see everyone's point of view, and you know, and so when I found that test, I was like, holy cow, I'm totally a 9. Gosh, but yeah. So like when I thought of this question, I was thinking, oh gosh, I don't know if I fit into any of those, but like maybe I would lean more towards like wisdom, just because it's like non-combative, like
I was
powers,
just about
like
to say that too.
yeah, like especially type, you think Type 9s, they're like, oh, avoiding conflict and stuff. I'm trying to improve myself on that too, but like trying to embrace my 8 side, which is like power or courage,
Yeah.
So maybe I'm growing into like courage, but like I'm kind of in the middle, but like leaning towards wisdom a little bit, because I mean I do gather knowledge, but that's not the same thing as wisdom. But you could maybe draw that.
Cool. Aaron, if you have anything to shout out, anything he says in the next 30 seconds, I'll have in the description below.
Nice. Okay. Well, I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and I'm at Aaron M. Grubb. That's AARON MGRUBB. And then Aaron Grubb Music in a lot of places. Aaron Grubb on Spotify and all of the streaming services. At Grubb Aaron for photography on Instagram. Or AaronGrubb.com. I mean, that's a good place if you wanted to message me, send me a message. You could send me a message on anywhere, but like if you want to do my website, you can feel free to do that too. I don't know. But I do like getting messages from people that listen to my music, or musicians that want to pick my brain a little bit about how to crack that Spotify code, you might say. So feel free to send me a message.
Thank you for joining us and discussing the world of music covers with Aaron Grubb. Check out our other Zelda Month content all month long on our YouTube channel. We'd love it if you could follow us on Twitter and listen to future episodes on Spotify and iTunes. Join our community Discord server to continue today's discussion. And we'll see you next time on the Switch Clicks podcast.